We are on the air.
We are on the air on a Sunday morning. Good morning, everybody. It is 10:45 if you're watching this live, 10:45 Eastern Standard Time, and I'm meteorologist Joe Rayo, and I'm here to kick off the morning
Kicking it
version
off.
of Sunday with Joe and Joe. I'm Joe,
I'm
and he's Joe.
Joe.
Yeah, you're Joe.
You got your cup of Joe?
It's not a cup of Joe, it's a cup of tea, but it's still almost as
You
good.
could lie. Nobody could see the inside of the cup, for God's sake. What kind of tea?
Black tea.
Oh, very good. Very healthy. English breakfast black tea.
I think. Well, I never knew of it as anything but black tea, but it's
No.
black
I
and
find I find that tea can be a moving experience.
oh, lovely. But
As
I
is
see
coffee.
we have the usual gang on the chat board here this morning, bright and early.
Well, you're in charge of the gang on the chat board because you can see them. I'm in charge of moving the maps. And Long Island is such a funny place, Joe. It really is. Weather-wise, all sorts of weird things happen out here. For example, all day yesterday, I don't know how windy it was by you, because of course you're pretty far inland. But I mean, the wind here was all day long was 20 to 30 from the south southwest, with gusts up close to 40 miles an hour, at least in Suffolk County. Now I'm on the North Shore, and I mean, I'm talking, if it was windy here, it was really probably blowing down along the South Shore coast. We had some we had some sun mixing in with the clouds. It really was a pretty decent day, but it never, at least by me, it never got out of the 50s. So no record highs here, even though New York City gets to 70. And this is usually the story around in these parts, right up through probably about mid to late June, when anytime there's a south wind.
Yeah, well, we had temperatures up here in Putnam County, where I was. It peaked at 66 degrees yesterday. And speaking of the wind, I took the lights down on our the front of our house and all around the house, and
I
I
did. I
kind
saw the picture.
and
Your daughter left you hanging on the the top step of that ladder.
for only about a minute. Now, what could happen in a minute? He said. Huh.
Yeah. Well,
But we had pretty good strong winds up here. We had winds gusting out of the south. I'd say at least 20 and 30. And for a time when I was up there, I said to myself, "What am I doing up here with the winds blowing so hard?" But yeah, it was a balmy
Mrs.
breeze.
Rayo running out with the piece of paper saying, "Hey, you didn't sign this before you went up on the
Yeah,
ladder."
yeah. Well,
Last will and testament.
no, the will has been signed, and she knows what's coming to her if Daddy falls off the
Oh,
ladder.
you're
But
going to let her have it then.
yeah.
All
But
right.
yeah, we had our fair share of wind, and we also had a rather warm temperatures. In fact, right now, as I speak to you, it's 64 degrees already, and I have a feeling, that we're gonna. I don't know if we're gonna get to
Last will
70,
and
but we're gonna certainly
testament.
take a well, no, the good will shot has at been it this signed, and afternoon. she knows.
Just a second. I'm sorry. I wanted to at least tried to share the YouTube link here on Twitter, and I accidentally had the volume turned on, so that was what that you might have heard the delay in the background.
Yeah, same thing.
Let me just say really quick that for those of you who are new uh, to the Joe and Joe Weather Show and to my YouTube channel, the Joe Chaffee channel, welcome aboard. And now I'm just going to share one more place, and then I won't be distracted anymore. Okay, so welcome aboard. Welcome to our show, which we not only do on Sundays, but actually we do on most days during the week. If you are new, use your Gmail account to subscribe to this YouTube channel, which of course is absolutely free, and then you can participate in the chat, which Joe will be monitoring. And going back to what you said, Joe, the chairman, Scott Briller, messaged me this morning that Central Park has already broken its record for the day. So that's 2 days in a row with temperatures in the upper 60s. But I would just point out, and this is something that Cranky Weather Guy mentioned on his Twitter feed this morning, that uh, if you think about it, these sorts of things happen when you're in kind of a primary pattern, and then you get these periods where you sort of vary away from the primary pattern. Every like 4 or 5 weeks, you get these kind of spikes up. We had one at the beginning of December when we reached up into the low 60s, a little bit past I think either right before the snowstorm or right after, and where temperatures got fairly warm for a brief period, and now we're doing it again. So from here, I suspect, and certainly with what some of the models have been doing now for days, that we are about to undergo a fairly, what I think is a radical change from what we've been through the last 4 weeks or the last 3 or 4 weeks or so.
Well, I think we're about to see a big flip here later on in the upcoming week, and as I said on Friday, for all those people who are walking around now and saying, "My goodness, it feels like springtime," this upcoming weekend is going to be quite the different story.
Yeah, and
Because not
probably
only are we
beyond
gonna-
it too.
yeah, not only are we going to be looking, yeah, beyond that, but I mean, not only are we going to be colder, but we could very well have wintry precipitation. And as I speak to you now, they've got a heck of an ice storm going on up in the far northern reaches of New York State across to central Maine.
Well, let's take.
With
Let me bring up the radars. We could take a look at what's happening up there, and you can speak to that. So hang on one second. Uh, Sunday mornings, I'm always a little slow on the uptake here. Let me get the radar up. And yeah, this is really about the last spot, Joe, where we are seeing anything left going on. I think I saw somebody mention somewhere in the last hour that Caribou actually changed over to sleet.
That's amazing because up in Caribou and Presque Isle, Aroostook County, that's in extreme northern Maine, they were anticipated to stay snow straight through this event. So the fact that the warm air advection has now pushed far enough north so that even they have begun to see sleet or ice is pretty amazing. That really shows you the push of warmer air that has moved up even into the northern edges of New England.
Uh, yeah, hang on one second, Joe. I'm sorry. I'm maneuvering maps and radars. I'm trying to get to the Caribou radar. I've got the wide radar view where you can see the precip that's up in Maine. Just let me just. This is. But when we do the live streams at night, folks, my head is been so into the game for much of the day, so I do everything sort of automatically. But when we do when I do the Sunday morning live stream, even though I've been up since about 6 o'clock this morning, it still takes me about the entire morning to get going. So I've got the radar up. This is the one from Gray, Maine. And it looks as I'm sorry, this is from Portland, Gray, Maine. There's some precip down into the southern areas of the state, but I think that's clearly rain that's down near Portland and Augusta. And then
Right.
you've got the precip to the north. Let me jump up to Caribou and see what they're doing. Yeah, there's snow up. The snow on the radar near Caribou has kind of moved up into the New Brunswick side, and then there's still some more precip happening to the south and west of there. Let's pull up some obs and see what's happening. They have winter storm warnings up for northern Maine. 35 right now at Bangor. Is that how you say it? Am I saying, yeah? Is it Bangor or Bangor?
I've always thought of it as Bangor.
Okay.
I've spent about a half an hour in Bangor, Maine, back in 2008. My flight back from Dusseldorf, Germany to JFK. There were thunderstorms at JFK. We were rerouted. At first, we were supposed to be rerouted back over to Boston. But then they routed us back to Bangor, Maine, and we just sat there for about a half an hour or 45 minutes while we waited for everything to clarify itself, and we were back on the way again to New York, New York State. The people who were on board that flight, again, I was coming from Dusseldorf, Germany. Most of the people on that flight, Joe, were German, and they were talking. The captain told them first we were going to Boston, and then when they said, "Sorry, Boston is closed down to us. We're going to Bangor, Maine," everybody on board was saying like, and one person who could speak English and German, speaking to me, and he said, "Can I ask where is Bangor, Maine?" And I said, "Yeah, it's approximately 200 kilometers, roughly, north and east of Boston, and there was another flurry of German going on, and one guy's and I said, "What did he say?" He said, "At this rate, we'll be going back to Germany."
Oh, Jesus. Caribou right now is 18 with light snow, so they had sleet and they must have went back to snow. Frenchville, Maine is heavy snow, 13, quarter-mile visibility there. Presque Isle, moderate snow and 19, half a mile. Holton, Maine, mixed precip and 22, and Millinocket is mixed precip and 26. Otherwise, everybody else, let's see, Lew- Lewiston, Auburn is mixed precip. Otherwise, everybody else in Maine is rain. Okay, Bangor, Waterville, Augusta. It's got to be depressing when it's 33 and rain. That's like the
Lew-
most. That's the most depressing observation for a snow lover.
Lewiston is also the home of the Farmer's Almanac. Of course, the old Farmer's Almanac is published in Dublin, New Hampshire, but the other Farmer's Almanac comes out of Lewiston, Maine, and as you just mentioned, they got mixed precipitation now down there.
Right. I have the GOES satellite. They added this. I love this view they added. It's called a sandwich view, and it kind of combines the visible with the enhanced, so that you could see both the lower clouds and lower clouds where you really don't really need to see the enhancement, and then the higher cloud tops show up pretty well, and you pick out all the thunderstorms and all the convective activity, and that really was the other story with regards to this particular storm was the massive severe weather of the last 2 days across the Gulf states and into the southeast. Numerous tornadoes. I don't know what the tornado count was in total, but what the
What the
hell?
hell?
All of a
All of a
sudden, I'm
sudden,
getting
I'm
an
getting an
echo.
echo.
Rumbling.
Do you hear an echo?
I heard a rumbling sound.
Testing 1 2.
Hello.
I hopefully I didn't. This for whatever reason. Now the echo's gone. That was very strange. Or maybe you turned on by accident. Did you turn on the volume up on a YouTube on your side?
I turned it up just a little bit, but
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, never mind. You
oh,
frightened me. I thought suddenly all my settings got changed.
oh, no.
But anyway, as we said, the big story was all the thunderstorms. I don't know what the total tornado count was, but it was substantial. There were fatalities across the South. Now, what's left of that thunderstorm activity is in coastal South Carolina and southeastern Georgia. As it's moving to the east. So you get also some stray showers and a few isolated thunderstorms in eastern North Carolina that are just about done. The thunderstorms that were moving through eastern Pennsylvania and into western New Jersey, by the time they got to me, they completely fell apart and were gone. I hardly saw anything from that. And now, as we said, you've got that precip up in Maine. The other area in the U.S. where there's a lot of action today is in the Northwest, where we have a ton of precip coming in. And when we look at the watches and warnings in the Northwest, there's winter storm warnings and winter storm watches all over the place. And by the way, remind me when we're done yapping. I got a bunch of links I want to share to everybody, which I think you'd find useful. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But got lots of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories and a few winter storm watches up in the northwestern part of the United States. And of course, you see the ice storm warnings and winter storm warnings that are still left in northern New York, northern New England, and those will be going by the board before too long.
Well, down here in Putnam County, about 6 o'clock this morning, it sounded like somebody was on top of my roof pouring nails on my roof. The rain was coming down tremendously hard, and we no thunder, no lightning, but very heavy, heavy rain. I have one of those Davis weather stations, and got up out of bed, went into the living room where the control panel is, where you could see all of the temperature, humidity, whatever. When it rains particularly hard, there's a message that flashes in the lower right-hand corner saying it's raining cats and dogs. Well, it was raining a lot harder than that. I could actually physically see on the rain gauge was ticking off. the hundredths of an inch like every few seconds. So it must have been raining at least an inch an hour for a short time. I picked up probably in less than an hour's time 0.56 inches, again, from very heavy, heavy rain. I just went back to bed, and when I woke up, a little before 9 o'clock, look out the window, it was already bright and sunny. I didn't anticipate the sun to come out or start breaking through until about 10. So it kind of was surprising. The clearing really rammed on in here after that narrow line of heavy rain that passed on through again around 6 a.m. this morning.
We have a Briller stat, just so you know. The overnight low at the park was 58 in New York City, which makes it sounds like it's the second warmest night on warmest low on record, I should say.
For January.
For January, 59 in 1950 is the warmest. So I guess the takeaway from that is that, as you and I have said many times, this sort of stuff has happened before. There's nothing new here.
Yes, absolutely.
I,
And by the way, it's 65 at Westchester County Airport in the lower Hudson Valley, and that breaks the old record of 63, which was set a mere 3 years ago in 2017. And 65 now, Lord only knows how much higher it's going to go between now and the end of the day. I'm just checking the records here to see what the warmest January temperature on record is at White Plains, and that is the 70-degree reading on the 6th of January 2007. It hit 60, and so we're only 5 degrees away from that. And we'll see how much higher we can go at Westchester Airport between now and then.
by the way, just to go back to the point about this stuff happening before, the I did see, and unfortunately, it didn't say where it was from. I'm assuming it was from somewhere in the Northeast. But what was really interesting about it is like the number of times during the winter months that the temperature's gone above 60, and whatever this place was, the highest one was 22. Again, I don't know. That would cover. Again, I'm not sure if they went December, January, February, or from the winter solstice to the vernal equinox in terms of getting that number, which it's significant because those first 20 days in March, it's probably less unusual to see your thermometer run up to 60. Certainly, a lot easier to do it then than say the latter part of February. Although it's not impossible then either. It does happen there too. But I was looking at the five highest numbers. I think the number 5 came in at 10 times. So you look at this and you look at the years that happened. A lot of the big numbers happened way back before 1950. So there's this tendency to jump on weather and making that connection to climate change. I'm experiencing this today, therefore it must be. I'm reaching this conclusion, and it doesn't work that way. Weather is weather, and climate is climate, and they're not the same thing. Okay, and I know most of the weather savvy folks on the board here know that, but in case you are new and you're just learning about this stuff, or you're interested in what goes on meteorologically, don't make the connection that with your weather experience that you're experiencing on a given day doesn't necessarily have anything to do with whether the climate change is or isn't happening. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that. I mean, I've seen some people who, on television in past years, we go through a spell of mild or warm weather during the wintertime. Oh, well, this is most definitely climate change. And then a few weeks later, we have like a blizzard. And this same person who a few weeks ago declared that the unseasonably mild weather was due to climate change, now saying that the blizzard or the heavy snowstorm is also due to climate change. And I'm watching this and I'm saying to myself, you can't have it both ways. I mean, there have been extremes in the past, there will be extremes in the future. And yet, I guess there was this one particular person who felt a need to say and point fingers at every unusual anomaly and say climate change, climate change.
Right. Well, Joe. Anybody that does that, it's 60. We had a record high today. It's climate change, and we had a record high yesterday. It's climate change. Anyone who does that has an agenda. It's that simple.
Right.
You have an agenda. Either you have a political agenda, or you have a media-driven agenda where you're trying to, rail up your audience, and you're trying to get them all excited and upset because we had 2 days of unusually warm temperatures. And also, this is also important because, and let's face it, folks that live in the New York metro area have a very kind of skewed view of the extent of the geography that exists to our north, east, south, and west. I know you've probably seen that funny cartoon painting of a New Yorker's view of New York geographically. And you
Yeah.
have like, in New York is like this huge place, and California is some minuscule dot in one spot, and Florida is a New York suburb, and all the rest of it. The whole world doesn't exist. Well, the whole rest of the world does exist, okay? And for example, Panama City this morning, this is another Briller stat that I got when the Central Park was hitting 66. Panama City was 63, okay? So why is it climate change in one spot and not in another? Or is it? Or is it both? Or is it neither? I don't know. I'm not taking a position here, but I'm just basically saying those people who do that in a general conversation are doing it to get attention, to try to prove that they're smarter than you are. So you just make sure that you knock them right back down to where they need to be. I don't know. I'm in a mood this morning. It's Sunday. I can
Yeah.
say what I want. So I got the surface map up. And no great shakes here. Our storm systems in upstate New York on the 12Z. I don't think I have the 15Z map in yet, but it's up somewhere between Syracuse and just north of I-90 between Syracuse and Albany. And of course, I go to refresh the map and it disappears. And there it is again. The frontal boundary lies right across central Vermont and central New Hampshire. So it's in the 20s and 30s and even teens to the north, and it's in the 50s and 60s to the south. The cold front is snaking down to the Florida Panhandle, where it's going to start to stall out. And then out in the west, we've got all kinds of nonsense going on with a 995-ish low that's just come ashore over Vancouver Island and heading eastward. So here comes your nasty weather out for the west. So how about we do the NAM?
Well, the NAM is now completely out, right? The 12Z is
Yes,
certainly.
it is. It is. It's out to 84 hours, and of course, in the let me. I'm going to pull the full U.S. view because we do have those that are watching from the western part of the United States, and we welcome them here. So while the East is seeing its storm depart, the West has got that new one coming in, and you can see that the NAM does produce quite a bit of snow there up in the northwestern quarter of the U.S. Snow showers moving into the Great Lakes for Monday. You've got this old frontal boundary stalling out from Virginia south and west toward Louisiana, and a high building up in north of Maine and New Brunswick tomorrow. So it looks like the wind's going to go around to the northeast, to the north and northeast tonight, and for Monday, and we got this weak system. Looks like a weak wave goes by to our south on Monday, and then another system approaches for Tuesday night, Wednesday, and then yet there's another uh, for late Wednesday as far as the NAM goes, a low near St. Louis. And now I got to jump to the GFS. I'm looking at this for the first time, Joe, so this is all new to me.
Did you have a chance to look at the European and GFS models from earlier today, from the 0Z or?
Yeah, I did. I looked at, but I'm looking at the new one now. So, what's kind of strange, and I'm not sure why. The GFS has nothing for Thursday. The system for Wednesday kind of moves out near New Brunswick to Nova Scotia and east and starts to strengthen. But it doesn't really have like a separate low and cold front, which is something that the Icon and the European and the Canadian had. I mean, there is a bit of a low east of James Bay Wednesday afternoon, and it all strengthens like crazy. It wasn't like late last week where it was moving a deepening low across southern Canada. Then your high builds in, and now I'm looking at the next weather system, which is of course the next focus of attention is going to be next Friday night, Saturday, and we're seeing, Joe. I think what we're seeing here now as we go through this pattern change, when we look at the upper air, this is a typical change where it happens it kind of happens in steps, where each weather system that moves by in the coming week is going to downshift the upper air pattern, turning progressively colder. It doesn't come in one big rush, but we're going to go through this like week to 10-day period where we're kind of downshifting everything, and of course that's going to mean for a system. The GFS has got snowed in New York City with a low west of St. Louis by Friday night. Saturday morning, it's in. I'm sorry, early Saturday morning, it's in central Indiana, snowing everywhere from Delaware northward. And that's as far out as I have right now, 138 hours.
Right. That's as far as I go as well. That's the 12Z, but the 0Z or the 6Z runs, especially the European. The European has now turned away from a colder weather regime. That system for next Saturday on the European is up near by Saturday morning is up over the lower peninsula of Michigan, and warm air advection pushing in, and it looks like an initial start to snow and sleet, but eventually, by the time we get to Saturday afternoon, again, if you believe this by face value, and it's still almost a week away,
Right.
they're saying it's going to be rain, and it could be heavy duty rain on top of that initial covering or coating of snow and sleet from late Friday night, early Saturday
Well,
morning.
well, here's the thing with regards to that, and we're going to look at the upper air. One of the things that's going to be happening through all of this, and I just got the 144, which is Saturday morning, and it still has snow from central New Jersey northward. In fact, it's got the dark blue heavy snow, which you don't really see too often, from central New Jersey, just south of the South Shore of Long Island. A 92 low. Uh, what's west of Akron? West of Cleveland?
Yeah,
A
yeah,
92 low there. Yeah, I mean the European, the models last night really made it look like a deepening low going to the lower lakes and a cold front that comes through. It does redevelop, but it redevelops east of Cape Cod, east in the Gulf of Maine, and done. This looks like it might be on this GFS run at least a little bit of a slightly colder look. You got a 1041 high in Quebec that wants to be kind of stubborn. By 18Z, Joe, the dark blue snow has just moved out of Long Island, and there's a band of heavy rain. There's an 84 low in eastern Lake Erie, almost to Buffalo. It kind of says that there could be, the GFS at least is implying to me that there could be a solid front end thump of snow
right.
Friday night into Saturday morning, particularly if it comes in as fast as the model has it. Um, and holds on to it in through Saturday morning before and then it kind of changes and it's over by at that point it's over with anyway. So you get a good solid arm of warm advection snow that forms ahead of this with that big cold high to the north. Who knows? Maybe there might be um, a decent warm frontal snow, which doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does, and sometimes it can be robust.
Warm frontal snows I have known drop not all of them, but sometimes I've seen cases where you get indeed like a quickie 2 to 4 or even 5 inches just on on warm frontal approaches alone. And then of course then you get disappointed because it changes over and you get all of that rain on top of all of that and you end up with nothing but slop.
I remember one particular case. It was back in the 80s, and it was right after Christmas. And we wound up getting, it was a warm frontal case. And I remember now, I love Tom Grant, who's a retired forecaster from the Weather Service. And there were certain things that he was known for writing his great writing and saying very pointed things sometimes. And he in this particular case, I remember him saying that because it was a warm front, we don't get more. Usually, with warm frontal snows in New York City, we don't get more than 4 inches. And of course, as soon in weather, one of the things I've always learned about, I've always taken with me when it comes to weather, when you make unequivocal statements like this never happens. As soon as you say that, you know it's going to happen. And in that case, it did. That warm front produced about 8 inches. It was right after Christmas. It was the warmest. It was the largest snowfall of the whole winter. And then the next day, it was 60 degrees. The very next day, I wish I could remember if it was. I think I was working at News 12 at the time, so it was probably either December. I'm going to say it was either December of '87 or '88. So, if you get a supercharged warm front with a deepening low under certain circumstances, you could wind up with a pretty solid front end thump with this. And actually, the GFS does redevelop the low. It's probably more of a primary secondary because you're getting a wrapped up secondary by the time you get to Saturday evening that's sitting somewhere over Rhode Island. And then that becomes a 977 low in the Gulf of Maine by 1 a.m. Sunday.
Well, if you want to believe, and we've often said, don't pin your hopes too much on these maps. But if you want to believe, again, at face value, out beyond 120 hours, the GFS 24-hour accumulated positive snow depth map, this particular system that we're talking about for late Friday night into Saturday is pumping out at a maximum 11 inches of snow for Rockland County, about 15 inches up near Poughkeepsie, 9 inches, 9 inches for Bridgeport, Connecticut. For whatever reason, Joe, and I don't
So is that the
understand.
positive snow growth map or the
This is the 24-hour accumulated positive
positive?
snow
So
map.
if it's got those kind of numbers, check out just for laughs. Check the actual 10 to 1 and see what it has.
All right, let me do that. So you want 10 to 1, 24-hour snowfall, 10 to 1 SLR.
Right.
Um, Now we got 13 inches in Rockland, 20 in Poughkeepsie, 11 in Bridgeport. For whatever reason, Joe, and I maybe we could ever get Levi Cohen to explain this. Even in the heaviest snow events, Long Island, it never shows up in terms of an accumulation. Long Island
Uh,
is completely, not completely, but mostly blank.
last year there was a data problem from NSEP that was leaving out the data along the coastal areas of New Jersey and Long Island and a few other areas. And
Right.
I think the same issue has been going on here.
Yeah. 'Cause I don't see anything for New York, but certainly you would have to figure the way things are just a stone's throw to the north and west, that New York is going to have a little bit more than, let's say, an inch or two. Long Island looks barren in terms of snowfall, but I would expect that they would have even some snow down there, all the way down to South Jersey. There's snow. There's 4 inches in Philadelphia. This again is now on the 24-hour, including sleet,
Right.
10 to 1 liquid ratio. 4 inches for Philadelphia and 2 inches for Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So if you want to believe this, there's going to be a whopper of a snowstorm, regardless of the push of warmer air, by the time we get to midday or afternoon on Saturday. But it's still almost a week away.
By the way, so I can check the New York numbers. I'm going to pull it up on one of the other sites in a minute because I got the upper air. I just want to show everybody what we're going from and what we're going to. And of course, we are. I went back to Thursday where we have the deep trough in the west, the strong ridge in the east, and lower pressures across the North Atlantic out to Greenland, which this again emphasizing the negative Pacific North America index, about as negative as you could get. That triggered off all the severe weather that we saw, and now as I said, this is going to be undergoing a radical change as we go through this week. Now, here we are from yesterday, last night, and this morning. You got that upper high, that really strong upper high off the East Coast. This is people were calling this a Bermuda high. That's because it is a Bermuda high, pretty much. And it functioned the same way with the warm surge up the eastern seaboard. Your deep trough still very deep in the west, shooting energy out east. Big upper high north of Hawaii that runs up to the Aleutians. And of course, you still have the slower pressures over Greenland. Now, this is right now. And now, as we move into this coming week, what we're going to see is the ridge in the east flattens out and all but disappears. The trough in the west, beginning on Tuesday, starts to shoot energy east. And you also begin to see a change, and I think this is really important. Up in the polar regions, we've got higher pressures building across Greenland and in the western part of the Arctic north of Alaska. And suddenly, when we go to the end of the week and into next weekend, you are beginning to establish a cold flow of air running down from Canada, a bit of a cross polar flow. That means cold air coming down. The Pacific is changing. We're going from a ridge north of Hawaii to a trough, high pressure building from the Azores up around Iceland to Greenland. I mean, this is all symptoms of a major pattern shift that's going to be 180 degrees from where we are now.
By the way, I disagree with what Christian Napedia just said.
Yes.
That you're drawing perverted pictures again.
Oh, she also made a point earlier. I meant to mention it. Is this Indian summer what we're experiencing now?
Is that politically correct? Can we
No,
still
I don't know. You know what? I'm not paying. People want to criticize me for that. That's
Native
their.
Native American summer?
I don't have time for this nonsense. It's weather. It ain't politics. So the other thing, Joe, I noticed on the European last night, and then we'll go back to the GFS, and I want to check those numbers out. But hang on one second. Let me get this under control. When I looked at the European, you look at the upper air on the European going forward, it gets really blocky by day 9 and 10. It gets really blocky. This is a very wintry look that you're seeing here, folks, on the European 10 days when we get to the 10th day. Okay. And while, we all know that the model is going to be somewhat different uh, to an extent, but in terms of the general pattern, it's hard to imagine that it's going to be that much different from this. But this is a strong upper high from the Azores across Greenland into the Arctic regions, deep trough in the eastern part of the United States, ridge up just inland of the west coast, trough at 160. So you're seeing everything lining up in the long range to set us up for what could be, and this is the other thing I want to say about this, what could be uh, a um, uh, a colder and snowier end of January, beginning of February.
Well,
That's
certainly. I
yeah.
mean,
Go ahead.
you got that big building block. It seems like it's completely switched now. Right now at this moment we have very high heights, building high pressure in the vicinity of Alaska, the Aleutians, and on this particular map that you have from the European, the 240 hour, out 10 days from now. Now you're suddenly seeing that's gone. It's been replaced by a trough, as you just mentioned, and now we have the building heights over Greenland taking place, and that certainly sets the stage for a lot of blockiness, and also, as you mentioned, Joe, as we move toward the end of the month, a much colder weather regime for the eastern half of North America.
Yeah, the Canadian connection, as I like to call it, is definitely going to be there. It is just going to take some time to play out. I mean, these things don't happen instantly, but they are processes, and sometimes they can be grinding processes that can take several weeks to go through. This one's going to play itself out in about 7 to 10 days. So I've got the new teleconnections. And the teleconnections off the 0Z run, and you can see the big rat. Remember, the base here is usually minus 200 to plus 200. So in some instances, you got to be careful on the chart. Just remember that the P&A is so out of whack that the charts are all at minus 600, almost over 6 standard deviations away. I believe that's what it is, or is it 3 standard deviations? I'm not sure. But whatever it is, it's nowhere near near the average. But look at the big spike up from January 14th. You go from about as extreme a position on the P&A as you can get. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, it goes to the neutral line, and then by 8 days, it's at plus 200, which is a very strong ridge, Pacific North America Index ridge, in the west and troughing in the east. The NAO goes neutral to slightly negative. It kind of vacillates that neutral line. One of the things I would point out about this is that it's going neutral next weekend. Okay. And if this winds up being a little bit more negative, if those building pressures in the North Atlantic build a little bit faster, maybe that's what the GFS is looking at today in creating that solid front end thump of snow. Maybe it's signaling on deeper analysis that negative decreasing NAO index might decrease a bit faster as you get that big pressure change on the Pacific side, and in the southeastern part of the United States, you're getting big pressure changes in the North Atlantic. Maybe it's underdone. Maybe it'll be a bit more negative.
I think, well, yeah, I'm just looking here at the two. Again, I'm running about a minute behind what you're actually saying, but I'm just examining the PNA, and that's pretty impressive. It doesn't quite flip flop the positive side of the coin for the PNA as we move into late next week and into the weekend after we go negative. Is not quite as extreme as what we're seeing now on the negative side, but that's a pretty significant flip over a span of just a week or 10 days.
I got the snow numbers off of Pivotal Weather right now for
For the
the
European.
no, this is from the GFS,
Okay,
from the new GFS,
right.
and because you said you can't see Long Island, so let me just pull up. I'm going to try to bring up the local. And, normally, folks, we don't look. And just to repeat this, um, the what Joe said earlier, when we're looking at these maps, apparently I can't get one for like really tight. Okay, so we'll just go with this wider view. Again, this is from pivotalweather.com. We want to give them all the credit in the world for putting together these maps, and I'm going to bring it up full screen. The EPO, by the way, the East Pacific Oscillation, you can see that that's trending negative as well. When you look at these snow maps on various sites, please remember that they don't all, I don't believe they all use the same algorithms to figure out the snow amounts. However they come to do it, I'm not sure. Because Joe, you mentioned the big number. What was it in Rockland County? You said was like 13,
11, I think.
11 or 13. Well,
Yeah.
on this pivotal map, it has a 5.4, what looks like maybe White Plains, okay, and a 9.9 in northwestern Orange County. It actually has a 5.4 inches for central Long Island, 4.1 for New York City, 3.4 for Philadelphia. Okay, sorry about the interruption. Are you still there, Mr. Rayo? Uh, we're trying to reconnect with Mr. Rayo. I got kicked off the. Sorry about that, Joe. I got kicked off the internet.
I know, and I put please stand by on the board.
Oh, good, good. Um, yeah, this seems to happen every Sunday. About 55 minutes into 45 minutes in, right around 11:20 or 11:30. It's happened the last 3 or 4 Sundays that we've done the live stream. And that's just kind of weird. But anyway, just showing with the pivotalweather.com snowfall map for the GFS, it seems to use whatever algorithm it uses. It's a little bit different from what's on Tropical Tidbits. But
Right.
again, I've always said that when it comes to that sort of stuff, it's not really a good tool, a tool for a forecaster to use. I think the better way to do it um, is to look at total precip, figure out when you think the rain snow line is, or the rain sleet, the snow sleet line is going to get to you, and work it out that way. I think you wind up with a far better forecast doing it like that.
And you can always go to Weather Prediction Center and check out their. I know after 4 days it's just merely probabilities, but you can always see what they're thinking in terms of wintry weather, further down the pike.
Yes. Yeah, you should if you're forecasting, you're going to look at all that stuff. It's at some point or another. You can't always look at everything all at once, but so that pretty much is it. I mean, I think after next weekend is the system for next weekend really kind of shifts, takes everything and puts it in full gear as far as going into a wintry pattern. And maybe I think it holds. I was looking at the climate models. All of the climate models keep a deep trough in the east and a ridge in the west for the entire month of February into the first early days of March.
Right, and the climate prediction center is indeed trending us more toward a below normal temperature probability by the time we get to late next week into the weekend and beyond. The other thing that they are trending also, Joe, is drier conditions. They have us above normal precipitation wise through the next 8 to 14 days, but they are suggesting as we get into uh, the month of February, my goodness, they're already
Yes.
that far down the road, that we may actually have noticeably a colder but somewhat drier
And
weather
but
regime.
and drier is probably better for snow lovers because if you look back on most years where you've had snowy months, when it's colder, it's usually you've got less precip to tap in
Right,
general.
right.
When it's warmer than normal, that's when you wind up with 2-3 inches of liquid with the rainfall event after rainfall event. I mean, we've been soaked here when you think about it from late November through the last early, 6 inches plus rain for the month of December, above normal precip, I think, for November, above normal precip so far for the first part of January. So, things are rolling along here.
They
You want it drier.
have weather prediction center for the tri-state area is calling for on Saturday next week. These are just probabilities now. They actually have a good chunk of the tri-state area, uh, a zero probability for exceeding a quarter of an inch liquid equivalent of snow and sleet. That's for Saturday. But then on Sunday, all of a sudden they change their tune for New York, Long Island, for the immediate New York City metropolitan area. They have about I guess you could say anywhere from a 10 to 30% probability. And for up my way, up in the Hudson Valley and northwestern New Jersey, 30 to 60%. That's not for Saturday. That's for Sunday of next week as of
Hmm.
12Z. So they too are hinting that we may see some wintry precipitation, although it doesn't seem to fall into place as to what we were just looking at. We're talking about a front end thump followed by maybe a changeover. They're talking about virtually nothing initially and then changing over to mostly a
That
wintry
sounds
pattern.
either that or the European has been a day later with all of this. The GFS has been faster, faster, faster. The European has been kind of slower, has been slower than the GFS, although it was a little faster on the last two runs. Um, uh, we started at first, even in the GFS, bringing no precip in until Saturday night. And for Sunday, now it's coming in Friday evening and lasting into Saturday morning before it changes over. So I would think that if it's going to be a solid front end thump, Joe, you're going to have to get the GFS to be right in the sense of getting the system out quickly, faster, because of the big high that's up in Quebec. You want that precip to get in here while you've got the high in place and cold air wedged down from New England down into New Jersey and Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. Because the longer it takes for that low to come out and it gives more time for the high to move out to the east, then you're going to warm up. You got to get it to come out as fast as the GFS has it in order to produce a solid front end thump.
Agreed.
Okay. Just checking on the chat right now, Joe. I think we have a flat earther on here somewhere.
A flat earther.
Yes, I don't know. I saw someone, Christinapedia said if this were a flat Earth, you would have walked. We would have knocked everything off by now. So I don't know who she's responding to, but we don't. Whoever it is, we don't do flat Earth stuff here. Okay, we just don't. But you can go to so many wonderful flat Earth channels, YouTube channels that you can go to get all your flat Earth information. Those channels, by the way, Joe, are located all over the globe.
Yeah, there are all kinds of people. There was a rap singer, I think it was several years ago, who had a big argument about this with Neil deGrasse Tyson about whether the world was flat. And unfortunately, Dr. Tyson answered this guy back, which I guess gave him, in a warped way, some not credibility, but
Gave him
it
you get attention.
gave this guy attention or whatever. So it's ridiculous. I'm not going to say much more about that.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
I
Oh,
got into a big fight with a guy in West Virginia. I used to take phone calls on behalf of the Hayden Planetarium, and after this brouhaha about the flat Earth, this guy couldn't seem to understand. Even when I tried to explain how we could prove that the world is round, he still didn't understand. It was the only time I ever hung up on a guy out of frustration. And then this guy started calling me every other day, leaving me messages. He said, "How come you people don't sell globes up there?" It's crazy.
any big astronomical events going on in the next week?
No, nothing. It's kind of bland for the moment. And we just had a full moon the other night, and that's about it for the moment.
All right, let me just really fast, Joe, and you might want to take these and bookmark them yourself for future use, unless you already know about them. But anytime anybody, if you find an interesting weather link that you'd like to share with everybody, let us know, and be more than happy to share it. This one is a tornado tracker website. And it's aptly called tornadotracker.com. I just put the link up there on the chat for you. There was another one here. Where did it go? I had it saved up. Oh, here we go. Now, here's a Briller link. So we have Briller stats and Briller links. But just like you can track tornadoes, if you really want to, this is actually, Joe, quite useful. It's called weatherusa.net/winter, and it's got pretty much everything that's going on winter weather-wise with the Weather Service watches and warnings and so on, all on one page. So that link is up there too, weatherusa.net. And we used this on Friday, and I've got it up here today again. This one is weather. I'm sorry, this is lightningmaps.org, where you can see real time lightning strikes. They're delayed by about a fraction of a second, or
Right.
maybe a little bit more than a second, but you can actually see and even hear the uh, lightning strikes with these little tick noises that your computer will make. Was very busy the last couple of days, no doubt. By the way, two folks have hit super chat today. Whoever you are, thank you. There's a YouTube. I can't see who they were. Maybe you can.
Jason Kaplan,
Oh, thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
and I'm looking here, scrolling back. Yes, Izzy D.
Oh, Izzy D. Good to see you, Izzy D. Uh, he made a live stream. He's because of schedules, uh, doesn't always make the live streams. I know it's tough, folks. A number of you have asked me about doing live streams at a different time. The problem is, whatever time we pick is going to wind up being a problem for somebody. And what am I supposed to do? I mean, I can't be constantly moving them around. Joe and I have to set our schedules as well. But you can always watch them on the replay. And if you've got questions, there are comment sections on the on YouTube where you can leave your question. A number of you do. Or you can always message me direct. And by the way, also please remember to go and subscribe to Joe Rayo's YouTube channel, which is Joe Rayo Weather. Correct?
Thank you. Yes, thank you
Oh,
very
you're
much.
quite welcome. In fact, let me put that link up there because it's very important. We got to get you up to 1,000.
I don't
And
even know how much I had. Did I hit 500 yet? I'm not even sure.
well, let me
I
take
haven't
a.
looked. I didn't do too many YouTube things this week.
Well, one
Uh,
of the things, Joe, when you live stream, you actually get more. You're almost at you're at 486,
okay.
which is not bad because you only have 18 videos on there since you just started it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so I'm putting up Joe Rayo's link here. It's called Joe Rayo Weather. And of course, again, if you are new to my YouTube channel and this YouTube show, use your Gmail account to subscribe, and this way you'll get notifications when new shows are coming. And they're usually we're doing them every day. 154 people and 37 likes. Thank you very much for those of you who are on right now. We got 157. As I speak, they're just clamoring to get on the channel. So no big astronomical events.
No, nothing. It's kind of like blah for a little while now.
Well, what's the next big deal?
To tell you the truth, I don't really think there's much of a big deal in the immediate future. Of you can in the evening sky, as soon as it gets dark, you look over into the west, and there's Venus brilliantly shining. Um, and it's always nice when the crescent moon passes by, but the moon is not a crescent right now. The moon is just past full, and that's not really unless we have something unexpected suddenly pop up like a super. There is a star in the constellation of Orion, the Hunter, Betelgeuse. It's a supergiant star. We've often known that this star is going to go supernova within the next 100,000 years, and this particular star, the Betelgeuse, has suddenly dimmed dramatically. It is much dimmer now than it has been in many, many years. And there are some astrophysicists and cosmologists who have often thrown out the theory or hypothesis that just before a star is about to go supernova, it suddenly, as it's using up the last of its hydrogen supply, it begins to diminish in brightness. And so there are not a few places out there on social media that are suggesting that any time now Betelgeuse is going to go supernova. It probably will not. It probably is not going to go supernova in our lifetime. But if it
Okay, just briefly lost you again. I don't know if you're there. Are you there?
are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yeah, I briefly lost you. Took another brief hit there again.
It might have been because Betelgeuse went supernova.
Well,
No,
that might very well be.
if,
Uh,
Joe, if
uh,
that star ever blew itself to bits, it would shine with the brilliance of almost a full moon and would be visible day and night in our sky
really?
for for many many days, many weeks, maybe even many months. So
Well, that's
that's
pretty cool. That's very interesting. But
it,
if it so let's say that this is right before this thing is going to blow up. Um, by right before, are we talking weeks, months, years, decades, centuries, millennials?
no. Well, this is what I'm saying is that the star we this star is an irregular variable. It's kind of like a star that's inflating and deflating at irregular intervals. And
Okay,
over the years, we've seen it dim to a certain degree, but it's always come back and become bright again. But this time, at this moment in time, the star is so dim. It's the dimmest that anyone in living memory has ever seen it. And again, the theory is by some that this is the signal that just before it's about to go supernova, it's going to dim dramatically. Now, whether or not that's going to be true, whether or not there are other forces that are causing it to make it dim unusually, now, and whether or not it's going to eventually come back to its more normal brilliance, that's a big question. But if, as I said, if it does suddenly blow itself apart, it's so close to us. It's only about 600 light years away. So I mean,
right.
if this star had already blown up, a few years ago, we wouldn't be we wouldn't know about it until now or sometime in the future. But it's so close relative to any other supernova that we have ever seen in our skies that this thing would just light up the nighttime sky and would be so bright it would be even visible during the daytime as well.
Right.
The movie 2010, which was the sequel to Space Odyssey 2001, this was the movie 2010 that had Roy Scheider in it. Jupiter apparently suddenly blows up into a star because suddenly all of the giant monoliths populate it and cause it to blow into a star. And now suddenly this object, what we call Jupiter, is now in our sky day and night. It would be something, I guess, like that with Betelgeuse, but again, not very likely. It's expected to happen sometime in the next 100,000 years. Not likely in our lifetime, but boy, I tell you, I'd love personally to see this happen, as I'm sure many people would if it were to blow
Right, right. No, Christina Pedia had asked you. You said it's 600 light years away. No, I mean, my question is okay. So let's say when we're saying it's about to go supernova, though, about to go. I mean, are we talking from this point on about to go in terms of weeks, months, years, centuries,
No, it's a
or
Joe.
tomorrow? I'm just
No, if astronomers and astrophysicists, when they talk about Betelgeuse, that it's about to go supernova, they're talking in the time frame of a relatively short interval of time, so far as the cosmos of the universe is concerned. 100,000 years is just literally a drop in the
Well,
bucket.
that's what I mean. When we say
Yeah,
it's going to go supernova, that could happen any time in the next 100,000 years. It's
anytime.
considered a short time frame, so it may not happen for us. We may
No,
not see it.
no, it's not likely that it's going to happen for us, but it's made for interesting chat and talk again on social media that hey, this star is going to go, it's going to blow itself up. Not likely to happen in your lifetime or my lifetime, but still making for interesting discussions, like people talking about whether or not we're going to get a big snowstorm next Saturday.
Right. Of
That
course, there will everybody say. A few people have pointed out just if you keep saying Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice like the movie and say it 3 times, it'll actually happen.
well,
As far as snow is concerned.
yeah, that too.
All right, so you know what? We've been on for over an hour. It's a good Sunday show, so let's wrap it up since we got thrown off the air twice by internet signal interruptions. Let's not gamble
Press
for
our
a
luck.
third. So tomorrow, back to normal for 7 o'clock, and we'll probably have some. We might actually have something to talk about from the standpoint of snow for parts of the I-95 corridor at the end of next week or this coming week or next weekend. So we'll have that. Just trying to think if there's anything else. Nope. Download my free weather apps on Google Play or on the App Store. The Meteorologist Joe Chaffee weather app or Angry Ben's weather app, the Angry Weatherman. Those are all free. And of course, you could subscribe to my weather platform on Patreon, which is just $2 a month. And it goes a long way to support what I'm doing, not just here, but on other venues. And you get lots of extra weather there. If you got to have weather 24/7, that's your place to be. And that's patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Chaffee.
And by
Do
the
you have
way,
any commercials?
no, I don't have any commercials, but when we signed off quick on Friday, because again, wanted to see Jeopardy that night, the
Yes.
championship tournament. Guess what? There was no Jeopardy that
Yeah,
night.
it was on last night. I happened to be flipping channels
So
and they had it on last night
they had three
in
they had
prime
three rounds.
time.
They ran all 3 rounds back to back to back to back. It will not be on tomorrow night. I don't know whatever it is. I guess the corporate programmers at ABC. The next championship round will not be until Tuesday night. So tomorrow night we
Oh,
can
you
go
know what? Probably because of football.
football or whatever. But Tuesday will be the next resumption of activity with Ken
Jennings.
out ahead.
Is he
Uh,
still ahead?
yeah, he's still ahead by two games to one. What's his name? The one who was on earlier this year and was winning left and right.
Konitzer? I
Yeah,
forgot. Did
yeah
he
he
win last
one
night?
game. Yeah, and the third guy hasn't won anything. The reason why the third guy hasn't won yet is that he's had like 4 or 5 daily doubles where he's put everything on the line on each daily
And
double,
and then get it right.
and went back to zero. So
Yeah. Well,
that's how it goes.
exactly. All right. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. And of course, Weather in 5 is usually I do it in the mornings, but on Sundays I flip it because we've got the morning live stream. So I'll do a Weather in 5 probably sometime this evening. Have a great day.